the very simple version of how you start the downswing in terms of shift and turn. It's an age-old question, right? Do I shift first, then turn? Do I turn and then shift? How much do I turn? How much do I shift? How do I turn? How do I shift? Right, all those things we have to go through. At the end of the day, the best thing I've found in my 14 or so years of coaching is this drill, which is you getting to an end goal of you have to shift and turn, not one or the other. You have to shift and turn to the point where you get your belt buckle to this chair. Let me explain what I mean here. Hey guys, so I want to let you know that we have only 7 days left, 1 week until our prices are going up at CogornoGolf.com. And I want to make sure you're aware of this so you can get in at our current prices. If you sign up before July 15th, you lock in the current price points forever. As long as you're a member, your rates will never go up. Our current rates are $69 a month, $495 per year. They're going to go up to $89 a month, $595 per year. So if you've been considering CogornoGolf.com, if you're a little bit more serious or ready to take your game to the next level, want to be able to send your swings in, have myself and the coaches look at those, build you a specific practice plan, what drills to do, what not to focus on, how many reps of those drills to do, when to go to the next level, and have access to everything we have, all the practice plans, the community. Myself and the coaches are in there literally every single day, talking, communicating, answering questions. You're gonna absolutely love it. Hop on this deal before July 15th. We'll put the link to Cogorno Golf down below. Hey guys, Eric here out at the Bethlehem Golf Club. In today's video, we have a viewer question from Instagram. Mr. Jake asked, Eric, my hips get stuck during the downswing. How am I supposed to start the downswing? Should I shift? Should I turn? How much? Do you have any drills? So yeah, good questions, Jake. We have a couple videos that we've done on how to start the downswing, how the hips work. You notice I've got a chair here I'm gonna bring in for reference. The very simple version of how you start the downswing in terms of shift and turn. It's an age-old question, right? Do I shift first, then turn? Do I turn and then shift? How much do I turn? How much do I shift? How do I turn? How do I shift? Right, all those things we have to go through. At the end of the day, the best thing I've found in my 14 or so years of coaching is this drill, which is you getting to an end goal of you have to shift and turn, not one or the other. You have to shift and turn to the point where you get your belt buckle to this chair. Let me explain what I mean here. So we're gonna bring up Analyzer and we'll have Adam Scott here. And I'm gonna pull up Adam Scott. He's one of a model we use all the time. And I like using Adam Scott because everything's vanilla, right? He's a very neutral example. He doesn't do anything out of the ordinary. And he's a good model for a lot of us to use. Not that we're all gonna swing like him, but just to see things. So here's a setup position. Now notice I drew a line from the outside of his left foot up to the point where when I stand up there, this space between his left hip and the stick is gonna be roughly a hand, the width of about one hand, okay? Which I'll show you when I go up there. Now watch him in the follow through and how his lower body initiates the downswing and how he gets to his follow through. So from the top here, you note his left hip basically stays on the line that it started, right, more or less. But now watch as he starts down, he's moving forward and turning. And now he's doing it to the point where his belt buckle gets at and actually through the line on the ground, right? He pushes his hips forward. He doesn't just push his left hip forward with no turn. If he did that, his belt buckle would stay pointed back over here, right? If he had just the turning component, let me draw that line up here one more time. If he had just the turning component, his belt buckle wouldn't turn. That right hip wouldn't turn through nearly as much as it does. So what he does here is he's clearly shifting, right? He's not just turning or staying behind the line. He clearly gets to the line, but it's not just his left hip. He's turning his hips through. Now, if one of them happens before the other, you would say there's a little bit more shifting than turning early and probably a little bit more turning than shifting later. Rewind that. There's a little bit more shifting than turning early, and there's a little bit more turning than shifting later. But really, what I want you to think about is from here through, he gets the belt buckle to that finish position. That's really what I want you to think about. It's difficult to get the little micro things in between. A lot of times, you'll get a lot of those for free by just getting the end goal thing. So if we shift back to our setup, just got my 7-iron here. I'm gonna take a setup and use a chair, and I would recommend here, Jacob, that you use a chair for this as well. You could also use a golf bag or an object or anything like that and just have an object here just outside your left hip. Now, depending upon the player's fault, I might move this in different scenarios, right? But let's go over some of the basics. If I set up and I've got about a hand and an inch, right? I would say a fist and an inch to the point of that. I'm gonna even bring it a little closer to me, to the point where we had his line where, right up the outside part of his foot. Let's assume that's the wall. So that's roughly where I want the chair to go. That looks pretty good to me. So it's about a fist outside. Now the point when I come down, if I went to the top and I started my downswing and I just shifted with no turn, my left hip and my left quad would run into that. Now that's not what I would like to see. If I start down and I just turn with no shift, I would completely miss it. I also don't want to see that. I want to blend my shifting and turning to the point where, you know, the front of my quad can be the first part to hit, but I want to get to the point then where my belt buckle's over it. That's my hips pushed fully forward. Now, how do these variables affect each other? Here's the simple parts I want you to think about. The more that I turn my hips, if you see from the down the line angle, that would make my club path the most outside in and move my low point the most forward. So the more I turn my hips without any slide, if that's all I did, my club path would be more to the left and my low point would be more forward. So if you're a player who swings too far from inside and hit pushes, hooks, fats and thins, you can utilize more hip turn to neutralize that, right? Let's say I normally swing 4 degrees to the right. I can turn my hips more. That'll go from 4 to maybe 0 and move my low point more forward. But if I just turn and don't rotate at all, I'm gonna be too over the top, hit pulls, fades, and probably too much divot. Now the opposite of that's true. What if I just shift? Well, the more shifting I have happens, I'm gonna usually have more tilt that'll go with that. When I push my hips forward, my upper body tilts back, and that's gonna make my club path more to the right, and it's also gonna shallow my angle of attack. So if you're a player who's too far over the top, you hit pulls and fades and low shots, you can feel a little bit more of the sliding, and that'll help you neutralize that. But for me, what I really want to get to in terms of a neutral is I want to have this one fist outside, just up from my left foot, and I want to push my belt buckle into that. Now, from down the line, I've got it far enough back to me where the chair is kind of off my heel line or just behind the middle part of my leg. I don't want it so far forward. Of course, I don't want to hit it with my hands, right? So I've got it back far enough where I'm not going to hit it with my hands, about a fist outside. And I'm going to start to make some swings, just short ones, and I'm going to get my left quad. This front part of my quad is the piece that I want to touch, right? See that there? So it's lower than my belt buckle, but basically my belt buckle hits it. Here would be all slide, no turn, which would be the left side of my quad. Here's all turn, no slide, I miss it. So let's get to the point here where we get the hips, the belt buckle to the chair. Good. And now again, the more of the pieces that I want to put in, depending upon where I'm at and how do I start my downswing, is going to depend a little bit upon where I'm at. So my club path there, let's see if we can see this. So my club path there was 1.9. So that's pretty neutral. Now, if I want to add more of the hip turning and take out, let's say I wanted to get my club path neutral, I can add a little bit more of the turning component, take out a little bit of the slide piece, and that should make my club path more neutral. So anytime I add hip turn, that'll make my club path more left relative to where I was. So there I felt like I added more turn. I didn't have as much pushing, and that ball was pretty straight there with a little cut action actually. And there my club path, so my club path was 1.5. So you can adjust those pieces again accordingly, but this would be how I'd be practicing it. I would say I want to start my downswing by trying to get to my finish position. That's what I'm thinking. I don't want to think so much necessarily about what happens for the first foot or so. I want to get to the finish position and allow that to create the motions that I want earlier. If you're someone, let's say you're someone who slides too much, your left hip would go outside of that line up the foot and you hit pushes and hooks. You might even want to feel like your lead leg's straightening a little sooner, your left hip's working up and back, and you're actually going to try and miss it. So let's actually try and miss the chair here. This would be a little bit of exaggerated turning. And that'll be a piece there that should neutralize your club path and would lessen the push and the hook. So that would be a good drill, Jacob, if you're someone who doesn't have the turning piece, right? If you want more hip turn. Now, let's say you have enough hip turn, you're hitting pulls and hooks, you might feel like you're trying to get a little bit more of the bumping going. So you're getting a little bit more of the left side of your hip going. This would be a little bit more draw bias. Yeah, and there my path was a little bit more from inside out because I tried to get my left hip there. So again, you can utilize this drill a couple different ways, but when you're starting your downswing, you're pushing into your left foot, more towards the toe if you want more push and draw, more right towards the heel if you want more kind of straight neutral fade, and avoiding the chair with your left side of your leg, getting the left leg straightening, and then pushing the belt buckle into it. If we were gonna get into the micro, it'd be push into the middle of the left foot towards the heel. As I'm pushing down, that's pushing back, my left leg straightening, my hips working up and back, and then I'm pushing that belt buckle forward. So it's foot, leg, hip, really. If we're gonna go through the actual sequencing, those would be the feels. That's really solid. That should be very neutral with my club path, but that would be the feels if we get into the micro. How do I start my downswing? Push into the middle of my foot, works back towards my heel, my leg straightens, my hip works up and back. Foot, leg, hip. Push into the foot, straighten the leg, push the hip up and back. That would be a really nice feel in terms of starting the downswing. That piece feels great. So unlocking your hips, starting the downswing, feet, pushing your foot, straighten your leg, push the hip up and back. Big picture macro, you got to shift and turn, not one or the other. More turn makes your path more left, moves your low point more forward. More shift does the opposite of that, path more to the right. You want to blend those two to the point where your belt buckle gets on the wall. That's a start your downswing shift versus turn masterclass. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Again, we're going to be taking some of these questions both from YouTube and Instagram. If you have a question you want us to make a video about, leave that in the comments down below. We're going to pick a couple. If you want to send your swing in, get your questions answered more thoroughly, myself and our coaches at CogornoGolf.com would love to work with you, put a plan together. We'll put that card on the screen. We'll also put a similar style video here if you want to check out some more YouTube videos. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to smash that gray thumbs up button. Thanks, guys.